All right, I'm excited to talk today. So, I am not a big TV person, but I love to listen to podcasts. Who here loves to listen to podcasts? Awesome, love it. So I love to listen to podcasts that teaches me more stuff. I love to learn, which, where was that gift when I was in school? That would have been really helpful. And so I love to get more information. Specifically, I love to listen to podcasts about nutrition and eating healthy. And it's so funny because usually I'm listening to this stuff, and to my left is a sugary coffee drink and a bag of chips. I grab another handful of chips. And I'm like, all right, no seed oils. Got it. Really helpful information. I'll start tomorrow. So information is always really easy to take in. It's really easy to take in. We are surrounded by information. And in fact, we have more access to information now than in previous generations before. We have more access to more preaching, more Bible studies. We have more access to the Bible than ever before. And this increase in access to information has actually served for a front door to the church. It's sparked curiosity and drawn people in, which is so awesome. But do you know the number one reason why people leave the church and faith altogether? I actually researched this a little bit because I love to learn now. The number one reason is because of the gap between what is being preached and what is being lived. Oof, that hurts a little bit. And so it's not a lack of information, but it's Christians who hear but don't do, who preach grace but practice judgment. And I know that sometimes there's just a misunderstanding, and sometimes we're read wrong, and so there's that too. But the gap between what is taught and what is lived causes many to question the authenticity of our faith. And in order to live out our faith, there has to be some sort of act of obedience, right, in order to live it out. Now, when I think of obedience, a lot of times I think of children, right? We think of children obeying their parents, and this is kind of an unfortunate thing, but a lot of times when you look at a child who's misbehaving and they're acting up, who do we tend to blame? Their parents. Ooh, who's their mom? Who's their dad? Which is unfortunate because sometimes kids just do what they do. But the same goes for us. When we are not living out in obedience, when we're being disobedient, it causes other people to go, ooh, who's their father? I don't know if I want to be a part of that. That's a little convicting. And so that's exactly what James is addressing here. He's saying that there's a difference between religious activity, things that just look good on the outside, and pure religion. There's a difference. He tells us what pure religion actually looks like. And living out pure religion actually requires obedience, not just hearing the word, but actually doing it. And you might have some questions. You might be going, okay, but why should I have to be obedient? What if I'm not obedient? Is God going to harm me? Is he going to stop loving me? What if I don't want to be obedient? What if I don't want to follow a religion that tells me what to do all the time? That doesn't sound fun. And so we're going to be challenged with some of these questions today. But in short, obedience activates something in us. It's like walking in the room. The light is already there, but obedience is like flipping on the switch and allowing the light to drown out the darkness. So it activates something that is already in us. That's what happens when we start doing what we've been hearing, when we actually make the decision to eat the salad instead of the chips. And that's why obedience is not about information, it's about transformation. Obedience is not about information, it's about transformation. And the marks of a transformed heart is that obedience listens, lives, and loves differently. All right, so by the way, we're in James 1:19 to 2:13 for those of you who are just jumping in. So obedience listens differently. It listens differently. Are you ever driving down the highway and you see a cop parked in the median? What is your natural reflex? You hit the brake, even if you're not speeding. And then as soon as you're out of sight of the cop, what do you naturally do? you speed back up and start cutting people off again. There is nothing about that cop that changed your life. You didn't see that cop and you thought, oh, that cop loves me so much, and I trust him completely, and I'm always going to go the speed limit, and I'm going to let everyone on the road go before me. All that cop did is just allowed you to adjust your behavior for a minute. There was no long-lasting change. You kind of went on and said, you know what, I have things to do, places to go, instantly forgot about it. And so that's a lot like being hearers versus doers. You saw that cop was there, and it did not provide long-lasting change. James 1:22 says, but be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourself. So it's like hearing the word on Sunday or Thursday morning, and you're like, great, love it, that was awesome. And then Monday comes, and you're like, all right, I have places to go and things to do. That kind of hearing doesn't transform us. All it does is inform us. It's just information. And so James calls us to do something a little more than just hearing. He calls us to receiving. There's a difference. And so James 1:21 says, therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, meaning put away distractions, to-do lists, defensiveness, put away resentment, put away shame, put away self-condemnation, put away selective hearing, put away self-doubt. Put it away. There's something you need to receive. How do we receive it? With meekness. Not with pride, not with stubbornness, not with resistance, not with I already know all this already, but you receive it with humility. Why? Because it's the implanted word, the one that's able to save your souls. Prepare yourself, posture yourself. There's something you need to receive. Clear out the weeds. The word implanted means something that is inserted deep within. It's like something that actually becomes a part of you. It's kind of like when you plant a seed in the ground. First of all, you got to prepare the soil, you clear the weeds out, and then once that seed is planted, it doesn't actually change the ground until it takes root, until the roots begin to grow. That's a lot like the word in us. It doesn't transform us until we actually let it sink in and grow. So James makes a lot of distinctions in this section, a lot of this versus that. One of the things he compares and contrasts a lot is the law of liberty versus the law of transgressors. We're going to come back to this a couple times. But the law of transgressors, it was good. It was God's perfect gift to us. That's like the law, by the way. It was good, but it was not meant to save us. The only thing it could do is fix the outside while the inside was still sick. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a diseased heart. So then enters Jesus stage right, and he provides the law that could save us, the one that could fix the inside. And he gave us a heart transplant. That's a heart transplant of grace. He gave us a new heart, not just fixing the outside. It wasn't just a cosmetic change, but it's a change that's life-giving from the inside out. So he gave us a new heart. That's the law of liberty, the Jesus law, the one that brings freedom. And that's the difference between the law of transgressors, that the law of transgressors could only fix the outside. It's a religious activity. The law of liberty changes us from the inside out. A transformed heart doesn't just hear the word, it hungers for it. It's not passive listening, it's active receiving. The word doesn't just hit the ears, it sinks into the heart. And so ask yourself this question. When I go to church, am I going to receive the word or am I going to review it and kind of take out what I like and what I don't like? Sometimes we come into church or we open up our Bibles and there's too much noise going on. And so what weeds do you need to clear out so that you can actually receive what is being spoken to you? Transformed obedience begins with a transformed way of listening. And when we let God transform the way we receive truth, he'll then change the way we reflect it too. So then obedience lives differently. So now James builds on this even more. You've received the word, you've postured yourself, you've prepared it, you received the implanted word. So now let's talk about what true religion actually looks like when it reflects that. And he says that instead of looking for the seat of honor, look for the widow and the orphan. That's how you know. And so James 1:27, a huge chunk of scripture here, talks about showing partiality to those who look wealthy. So basically, if you're here at Women's Study and you see a woman coming in and she's wearing Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, I had to Google all those, by the way, and you're like, hey, you, I saved you a seat over here. Meanwhile, you're ignoring someone who maybe looks like they're wearing, I don't know, sweatpants, and which is actually my kind of outfit. So, but anyway, you get the point. What is he actually telling us here? What he's doing is that he's saying, hey, you're doing this thing. You're saving a seat for the woman who looks like she just walked out of a Vogue magazine, and you're patting yourself on the back, and you're like, you look at me. It's a very loving thing to do. But he's saying, well, you're calling that loving, but let's test the heart. Let's test it. Let's test it and see if the transformed heart took, if it took to the body. Because the difference between the rich and the poor in this scenario is that the rich can give something in return, and the poor cannot. And so what he's basically exposing is transactional love, a love that is motivated by self-interest, not by grace. So transactional love is motivated by self-interest, basically saying, if I love this person, what do I get out of it? And sometimes it can be things like, if I love this person, are they going to solve my need for self-worth? If I love this person, are they going to cure my pain of rejection? And so we can kind of try to get those needs met by other people while ignoring those who really need gospel love. And so we have to kind of test our hearts for that transactional love, because sometimes it's kind of sneaky. Now, I love my coffee. I love it. I save my coffee a front row seat, 9:30 a.m. Sunday mornings, sitting right next to me. Now, if someone said, that's great, Sarah, you can save your coffee a seat, but you can't drink your coffee. You can't get any of the benefits from your coffee. I'd be like, well, maybe my coffee doesn't need Jesus after all. And so we have to test our hearts. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? James's message is not just about doing. We don't want to necessarily zero in on that, but it's about doing with the right motive. That's pure religion. And it comes from transformation, not transaction. So then James goes into this picture of a mirror, because he knows how easy it is to look obedient without actually living obedient. Isn't that interesting that we can actually look obedient on the outside, but we're doing it from the wrong motive, and so we're not actually living obedient. He knows how easy it is to do that. So he gives us this picture of a mirror. He says, hey, let's take a look and examine ourselves to see what's going on. So he says, for if anyone is hearer of the word and not a doer, she's like a woman who looks in the mirror and sees that she looks like Taylor Swift from the Blank Space music video, and she's like, nah, guess I'll go to parent-teacher conferences now. She's got like makeup running on her face. And so when we look in the mirror, not only do we see what is flawed in the outside, but what we really see is that the outside does not reflect our inside. That's really what's being exposed. And sometimes looking in the mirror feels really hard. It feels really hard. And so sometimes we don't want to look. Sometimes we don't even want to go there. And we'd rather forget. Sometimes forgetting seems easier. Now, some of you know our story, and I really wrestled with to share this or not, but it's a season we're in. I'm sorry if you're sick of hearing it. But so my husband and I, we've been trying to adopt for about 3 years now, and so we've had 2 attempted adoptions. Both fell through, and the second one was quite a bit more involved. And try to make a long story short, but basically we were asked to adopt 3 children. And that was not an easy thing to say yes to, going from 1 kid to 4 kids overnight. It was like, oh, holy smokes, are you sure, God? And so we really prayed about that, and we really felt like God was asking us to say yes. And so we said yes, and it was like all hands on deck. We had to raise money really fast. We had to prepare our home. The whole community was pouring in to this endeavor, and which was really amazing, actually. We built 4 built-in bunk beds. By we, I mean my husband, because I don't build things. But we now have these 4 built-in bunk beds, because that was the only way we were fitting 4 kids in our house. And over the course of 2 months, we began developing a relationship with the birth mom over FaceTime because they were out of state, and with the kids, trying to kind of work on that and build that up. And then the week came, and we waited for their arrival, and we found out the whole thing was a scam. So, sorry, I thought I cried this out already, darn it. But the short story is that the mom was actually babysitting these kids. They weren't hers. And I'm sorry if this leaves you with a lot of questions. I mean, it leaves me with a lot of questions. If you want to ask me about it later, you totally can. But I was really sad about this for a long time. I had to walk through that grief and that sadness and process that. But about 2 months ago, another thing just kind of hit us out of nowhere, it felt like. And it was another one of those things that's like, if this adoption scam didn't happen, this wouldn't be happening. And those things just kind of keep coming and keep rekindling that. And so now I went from being sad to now I'm angry. And as Rachel said, I'm very laid back. I don't get angry easy. I don't get offended easy. But now I'm angry. I'm so mad. And this anger just put me, in a trap. I'm believing all these lies. I wanted to isolate. I wanted to push people away. I wanted to quit everything. And in that anger, I wanted to go to the media. I wanted to lawyer up. I essentially, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I wanted to make her life miserable. I wanted to go after her and make her feel the pain that I was feeling, because I'm like, that's not fair that I have to carry this pain by myself. Oh gosh, and it put me in a trap. And in that trap, I guess, my husband said, did you forget? And that sounds really insensitive, but I knew exactly what he meant. He said, you know how to do this. You know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to. That's my anger. I deserve it. I'm justified. I deserve to be angry. I don't want to go here. I don't want to be obedient and go to the Word and face what I don't want to face. Sometimes choosing to forget seems easy. But did you know that in the Bible, it says 1,200 times, some sort of variation of, let me remind you I have spoken to you. Let me remind you what I have did. Remember what I did. 1,200 times, some sort of variation of don't forget. It's almost like God knew we would forget. It's almost like he knew we would open up our Bibles, come to church on Sunday, and go back into the world, and all these messages would be hitting us, not the ones that could save our souls, of course, and we'd forget. And so he says, don't forget. Look in the mirror. Let me remind you that you don't need to do those things. You don't need to act that way because that's not who you are. It's easy to forget when we're angry, when we've been hurt, and when we're being obedient but yet not seeing the results that we want to see. It's easy to forget. Obedience can be hard, and sometimes it leaves you with pain. Sometimes it leaves you with questions and 4 empty bunk beds. And so obedience can be hard when we're really unsure of the outcome. But the thing is, as we step out in obedience, whether that obedience is just going to the Word when you don't want to, as we do that, we can be sure of one outcome. We can be sure that we will reflect him more and more. And we can be sure of a changed heart. And that's the one outcome we can be sure of. And the thing is, sometimes this is a difference between religious activity and pure religion. When we're struggling or whatever, we're just going through it, we can go to our Bible in a way that is more like a religious activity. It can kind of be like, okay, God, like I'm doing it. Like, look at me, I'm doing it. Almost like a shield between you and God. Like, okay, like don't come at me, bro. Like, I got it, I'm doing it. But no, that's not why I go to the Word. I go to the Word because I forgot, because I can sense myself drifting. I can sense the world pulling me back in. I can sense myself being stuck in resentment and anger and wanting to isolate and wanting to judge, self-condemnation. I go back to the Word so that I can be reminded that that's not who I am. I don't need to do those things. It's not a religious activity. It's the Word. It's a transformed Word. And that's why obedience matters, so that we can have a changed heart. So maybe obedience for you this week isn't about doing more, but it's about letting God go deeper. Maybe it's about letting him expose the motive behind your doing. Why you serve, why you give, why you love, or perhaps why you hold those things back. Obedience shapes us, and it shapes others around us. And so obedience also loves differently. When the word takes root, it changes our reflexes and rewires our desires. Just like in your natural reflex to hit the brake when you see that cop and then speed back up when you're out of sight, sometimes our natural reflex when things get exposed is to judge or to resist the word or to be stuck in anger and resentment. Sometimes those are our natural reflexes, but letting the word take root actually changes those reflexes. And so when we build those spiritual reflexes, when we exercise those spiritual muscles, we begin to love differently, with grace instead of pride, with mercy instead of judgment. That's what begins to happen. And this is love based on obedience, a love formed by obedience, not love based on preference or personality. Let me say that again. A love formed by obedience, not love based on preference or personality. See, it changes how we love. So James kind of reframes the law of transgressors versus the law of liberty with the law of judgment versus the law of mercy. And he tells us you can't double dip under two laws at the same time. Judgment and mercy cannot coexist in the same heart. So we can't obey the word and still live by the world law of judgment. Love that flows from obedience is governed by mercy. It steps toward people in their struggles, not away from them. That's what mercy does. But when we receive this mercy and yet we still live in constant judgment, it shows that we have forgotten what we are given. We completely forgot it. We haven't lost it. We just forgot it. And so a heart that forgets mercy will always withhold it. Where mercy is absent, judgment will take its place. So he says, whoever keeps the whole law but fails at one point becomes guilty of all of it. Yikes. So here's what he means by this. When I was in 7th grade, I went rock climbing in West Virginia, or it was like belaying, I think is what it's called, where you hang off the side of a cliff and you go backwards. Anyway, so I'm all strapped up in my harness and my ropes, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, holy smokes. And I'm looking at the carabiners, and I'm just studying them. And the guide's like, okay, you ready? And I'm like, no. And I'm like looking at these carabiners, and I said, what if one breaks? He's like, oh, no, it's not going to break. I'm like, but what if it does? He's like, it's not going to. And I'm like, but what if it does? All I could think is if one carabiner breaks, like, I'm going down. If one breaks, consider them all broken. That's what James means by if you break one part of the law, consider it all broken. One broken link is enough to send you failing. So no matter how hard you try to hold on, no matter how many good things you do, one wrong thought, one careless word, one act of pride, consider yourself completely guilty. But consider the good news. Jesus came and fulfilled all of that for us. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Jesus didn't come to just repair a broken carabiner and fix your behavior. He came to give us a brand new heart, a heart that beats with mercy, a heart that responds in love, not judgment, a heart no longer held by the law but transformed by grace. And the cool thing about this is that because we're under the Jesus law, the one that brings freedom, because of this, we can faithfully step off the cliff of obedience, knowing that even though it might be a little clunky at times, even though like we're going to mess up a little bit, even though we might accidentally say the wrong thing and maybe we kind of take a step back, we can still faithfully step off that cliff of obedience, knowing that he's got us. He's got us. We don't need to fixate on our behavior. We can fixate on him, allowing him to just enable that in us and to step off that cliff of obedience and make those steps. But the thing is, if we put ourselves back under the law of transgressors, the law of judgment, we're probably not even going to step off the cliff. We're going to go to church and we're going to hear the word and we're going to go, nope, I'm good. I'm not even going to try that because I know I'm going to mess up. And that's where you forget. You forget that Jesus has done it for you. You can step off that cliff knowing that he's got you no matter what. No matter if it's perfect or it's not. It's probably not going to be perfect. I need to remember to breathe, sorry. And because we have a transformed heart, one day when we stand before God, he won't judge us by the carabiners of our past failures. He'll look at the new heart and he'll say, oh yes, you have my heart, I see that. He won't judge us by our failures or our behavior. He looks at our heart and that's what he sees. So why are we judging others according to their change, which appear broken? We get out our magnifying glasses and we go, ooh, I don't like the way they worship. I don't like that. It's not genuine. And because I don't like the way they worship, I discredit everything they do. Or we get our magnifying glasses out and we go, ooh, I don't like the one thing that preacher said, that little thing they said, so I completely discredit everything. And in fact, I'm going to go tell everyone never to listen to them, because if they failed at that one thing, they failed at everything. And we nitpick and we hyper-criticize behavior. Or maybe we get that magnifying glass out and we judge people's struggles. Like, ooh, I can't believe they're still struggling with that. I can't believe they're struggling like that. And we completely discredit them because of that. If they're struggling with that, consider themselves failed at everything. But mercy, sorry, there's a fly in my hair. Mercy received will always be mercy given. Obedience loves differently because it doesn't live from memory. It loves from mercy. It remembers what it's been given and it gives the same. So when we've received it, we will freely give it to others. Where mercy is absent, judgment will take its place. So walk in mercy. Spend time with the orphans and the widows, meaning spend time with those who you are tempted to judge. Because when you spend time with them, you get to know their heart and maybe you understand a little bit more. Maybe you choose to walk with them in their struggles instead of pushing them away and judging them from afar, knowing that grace met you in your struggles and grace will also meet them in theirs. And I want to kind of hit this from another angle a minute too. If you're sitting here today and maybe you have been harshly judged in Christian circles, maybe someone has said something that's just really hurtful, maybe someone behaved in a certain way, that you just kind of took that and you stuck it in your brain and you're replaying the hurt over and over again. And maybe so much so that you're even like, ooh, I don't know if I want to keep doing this church thing. And first of all, I'm sorry, because that hurts. Judgment hurts. Judgment really hurts. But I wonder if maybe we can trust that those people who have hurt you, that God is still at work in their hearts, just as he is in yours. That God never stops working. He's always working in our hearts. So here's a question. What mirror is God holding up to your heart? What situation is he using to show you where he wants to bring freedom? Let him deal with that first. Because freedom doesn't come from fixing people or situations. Ugh, that kind of hurts a little bit. Freedom does not come from fixing people or situations. Freedom comes from letting God transform you. And that's how mercy triumphs, one obedient act of love at a time. We live in a world overflowing with information, but starving for transformation. And that's what the world is desperate to see, not just people who know what's right, but people who live it. The world doesn't need more people who can just quote scripture, but people who can actually embody it. And the more you activate that switch that is already in you, you start being offended less. You start going, ooh, that thing that used to bug me doesn't bug me anymore. Look at me, this is awesome. How'd that happen? Things that used to make you angry, you start going, oh, that doesn't make me mad anymore. That's so cool. And then you start moving toward people who are in pain or struggling, and you go, oh, I didn't used to do this, and now I do this. And it's not because you retained a bunch of information. You're not going to retain everything I said today. I don't even retain it. That's why I have notes. But it's not because you retained a bunch of information, but it's because that seed has been planted, and you let it take root by taking that step forward and allowing God to show you what he can do as you step forward. And things start to change, and you look back and you go, holy cow, how did that happen? And it's because God let it happen, and you allowed him to do that. So may our obedience be the kind that makes people look at us and go, I think I know who her father is. And I think I want to know him too. because she looks just like him. All right, let's pray. And God, thank you so much for your word, and just that it not only hits our ears, but it can sink deep in us. And we don't need to think too logical about that. We don't need to try to do the math and figure out how that works. But God, that we just trust you and allow that to take root in us. And God, I just pray for the woman who's sitting here, who maybe you've placed something in front of her that's calling her to be obedient, and she's like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know what this is going to look like. God, I just pray that she just throws her hands up and says, you know what, I trust you. You've got this. You've got the outcome, so I'm just going to move forward in that. God, just empower her to do so. I pray for the women here who are maybe struggling with past hurts from judgment. I just pray that you work those things out. Whatever that looks like. Let the pain go away. Let it absorb. Maybe apologies happen where they need to happen. Forgiveness happens where it needs to happen. God, we just thank you for your word, and that it always grows if we let it. In Jesus' name, amen.